Right, thanks for all joining us. A simple one to start. We won't make it too taxing to begin with, but why don't we just work down the line, just for the audience, and I guess one by one you can give us a brief intro to your role, your responsibilities a little, and I guess a top line of what's on your radar at the moment when it comes to the subject. Kurt, you start please, as our sponsor.
Yeah, sure. So first off, great to see everybody here. Thank you for having us. My name is Kurt Schaefer. I have global responsibility for our indirect procurement within Jabil. We have a really dynamic team, about 400 to 450 practitioners based globally. Within Jabil, we've got about $6 billion of indirect spend that we manage and a lot of complexity with 25,000 suppliers. I would say probably top of mind right now is dealing with the geopolitical issues that we have currently in the macro and how we're going to navigate those channels. So,
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Kurt. Amanda?
Thanks for being here. You guys are like the survivors, right? The overachievers. Amanda Prochaska, I'm the Chief Wonder Officer at Wonder Services. It's a company that I started 7 years ago after being a practitioner for 16 years, leading large-scale transformations across the procurement space. We're very in depth into AI, so that's a lot on my mind lately around how are we going to prepare our organizations for this new era of AI capabilities.
Brilliant, thank you. Paul?
Hi, Paul Kranz. I'm the Vice President of Indirect Procurement at 3M. 3M's about a $25 billion revenue manufacturing and science company. We're in safety, industrial, consumer products such as Scotch tape, Post-it notes you might be familiar with, as well as transformation and transportation electricity. So some of the things we're most focused on is we're on a very large transformation journey in procurement at 3M. We buy a little over $10 billion of goods and services, and we're focused on stakeholder engagement as well as technology as we work through that transformation journey.
Thanks, Paul. And Stephen, down the end there. Hello.
Hello down there. My name is Steve Kiernan. I'm with Reynolds American Tobacco, headquartered in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'm one of the indirect procurement directors. I look after about $200 million in spend across marketing and IT categories. I'm thrilled to be here in place of my boss who couldn't make it today. And some of the things that we're focused on, in addition to what the other panelists mentioned, I think that we're also very focused on the digitization journey, the adoption of AI, and just process improvement, SRM, relationships with our stakeholders, business partnership, things like that. So those are our strategic tenets right now.
Brilliant, thank you everybody. Thanks for welcoming yourselves to the audience. Let's get started. Kurt, we'll start with you as our sponsor. A context, a scene setting question, I guess, for you, and we'll move down the group and discuss. But we've moved from a just-in-time world to a just-in-case world. For you at Jabil, how has your approach to supplier risk management in indirect categories changed now that disruption can be as damaging as hardware shortages and things like that? Go for it.
yeah, so I would probably say the transformation started about 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, I think maybe a show of hands, who was in procurement or supply chain during the pandemic? Yeah, so I see all the battle wounds and the scars in the crowd right now. So I think that really kind of started the transformation ourselves. The great thing about the pandemic is it definitely pulled holes in our process and made us realize, like, hey, we need to build a more resilient supply chain. And even in today's environment, with all of the things that are happening geopolitically, the war in Iran, Ukrainian war, all the stuff that we're having to navigate and troubleshoot within procurement and supply chain is something that we need to focus on and build some resilience. So there's 3 things that we really focused on post-COVID and post-pandemic to really tighten up that resilience. First one was focusing more on nearshoring and onshoring suppliers. Jabil, we're in 25 different countries. We have 100 manufacturing sites globally. So we have a lot of complexity that we have to navigate. And we were buying a lot of material that was having to flow into the country of where we're operating versus finding the supply base that's in country and then being able to be closer to the operations and really mitigating any of the logistics constraints or any challenges there. The second one was more from a visual standpoint, like just being aware of, hey, this thing happened. Let's say there's an earthquake in Tokyo. How do we react to it? who's based there, who are our suppliers. So we've built a proprietary solution internally. It's called Resilience Hub. And Resilience Hub uses geo mapping. And what we do is we map out all of our suppliers worldwide and their locations, where they reside. So if that earthquake in Tokyo happens, we'll get a signal from our AI tool to say, hey, this happened here. You have 4 suppliers that are based there. You may want to take action, reference and connect with those suppliers, and just make sure everything is okay. So it's helping us kind of be a bit more proactive versus being reactive. And then the third thing is one of the biggest challenges we had was, within procurement, we're always hunting the lowest costs, and we want to build up scale and provide that to our suppliers. Well, we through that process, we ended up developing a lot of sole source situations, which put a lot of risk into our supply chain. So post-COVID, and even in today's environment, we're really focused on multi-source, dual tertiary channels worth of supply.
Great, thanks. You mentioned AI there. We'll pick your brains on that shortly. But
Sure.
Amanda, you bravely put yourself forward as the AI expert a little at the beginning before we came on stage.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you before we go down the group and talk about technology. Obviously, adoption is happening at a rapid rate. What for you is the key litmus test or the key process to work through to determine if a new technology is a real game changer or just another addition to the tools and solutions that we have?
Okay, so I could take this all different ways, but just there's a lot of technology coming your way. I'm sure you're feeling this, right? I was just thinking about your answer. Like several years ago, we didn't have the data to be able to do what you just did, or the technology to be able to get those insights. And now we have that capability. So if I were sitting in your seat and I was looking for what's going to change the game, I would first look at where do we have holes or inefficiencies in our process today. And I like to say where all of the promises that we made over the last 10 years didn't get fulfilled, if you think about it that way. And everyone's like, yes, we made a lot of promises and some things are not fulfilled at this moment in time. I would start there, right? I also see, as people are trying to venture out into the AI world, data becomes very important. And so if you're like, hey, I don't have money to do anything in the AI space today, one of the things that I would be doing instead is looking at your data and trying to get it prepared. And you don't have to hire a bunch of people to do that. There are some very slick, very affordable AI solutions to be able to do that. But also look at, where do you not have the data today? One item that keeps on coming up all the time is people don't know their salesperson's contact information, right? If you want to do autonomous sourcing, which you saw some really brilliant offers out there, if you don't have their emails, you're kind of stuck. So start there, but there's going to be a lot of game-changing technology coming your way, whether it's a black box technology end-to-end where transactions happen, or that agentic layer that sits on top of it. So just be ready. It's going to change rapidly over the next year. So if you're thinking about getting locked into anything right now, I would be thinking agility. I would be thinking maybe not 5-year contracts, maybe something shorter, so that you can keep up with this innovation that's coming your way.
Thank you. And thanks. And Kurt, what was the process when you were developing your proprietary tool? How did you work through that, your AI tool?
Well, I mean, I think just with anything, well, let me take a little bit of a step back.
Sure.
Jabil took a proactive approach, and we wanted to get ahead of the game in terms of AI development. And so what we did is we ended up actually partnering with an AI firm, and we created a JV. And what we figured there was, Jabil, we're a 60-year company. We ship $60 million worth of product every single day. We have 38,000 suppliers in our ecosystem. We have $27 billion to spend, and I could go on for days. But the reality is we said, hey, we're really good at procurement and supply chain, but we're not great at building AI. And so we ended up creating this JV to kind of leverage both sides. Leverage that company's capabilities and leverage our experience to be able to find solutions and generate solutions. And so again, kind of on the back of the pandemic and on the back of the Ukrainian war and on the back of all the challenges that we have, the idea came to fruition that, hey, we really need to have a solution here. We need to have a way to respond to these, and today we don't. Today, we rely on the practitioner to know where all of our suppliers are. We don't have a tool. Like if that practitioner leaves, we now have a hole in data. And we can't get that back. So we use that experience and that knowledge to go, let's go build something. And that's what we did.
Great. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you. Paul, what about you? How is 3M leveraging technology? Where are you at on your journey?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we're on a transformation journey. So I would say we're probably a little bit more of a laggard. So we're a 125-year-old company with a lot of people that have been there for a long time. And just recently in the last 5 or so years, we've started to bring in some outside talent, and they've really infused some new ideas, some new concepts of some experiences that they've had on the outside. COVID was mentioned earlier. I would say our strategy, our real activity around COVID was leveraging the relationships that we had built for decades. And that worked. It was very reactive, I would say. We didn't, to your data point, we didn't have a lot of data that we could look at to say, these are the hot spots that are coming. This is what we need to address. We dealt with it more at the top-to-top relationship level with these trusted suppliers. And what we realized was that was an okay way to manage it. It was very labor-intensive. It was very manual. And frankly, to manage the enterprise going forward, we were going to have to look at our data set. We were going to have to look at our teams, our organizational structure, and drive a lot of change through that. So I say change, and we can talk about what those changes are here. But one thing we didn't want to lose was the access to those relationships, the quality of those relationships, because at the end of the day, I know we're talking a lot about AI and there's a lot of value in that, but there is still a relationship element to this that for some of those larger spend activities, we can be very active in the marketplace, but we don't want to be giving up some of those relationships. So I think there's a balance there of the people side with the technology that we're very much aggressively pursuing.
Can I add in there?
Absolutely, please.
So I think it's a wonderful time to be in procurement because some of the AI capability, we're going to be able to spend more time on relationships, right? Like if I were looking at my resources and where I would want to redeploy them, because the people that had the A customer label during COVID, so your suppliers rank and file you, right? Like, so you're an A customer, a B customer, a C customer. If you were an A customer, like it sounds like you were with a lot of your suppliers, you got preference on allocations, you got preferences on other innovations that are coming. And so I would be looking at like, how do I become the A customer for more of my suppliers? Because at the end of the day, AI is going to eliminate a lot of, like, automate some work that we do day in, day out. But when another COVID happens, when an earthquake happens in Japan, you're going to want to have those A relationships.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting from a talent standpoint to look at the type of work people were doing 5 or 10 years ago, which by and large, in the aggregate of the organization, mentioned 400 people. We're not that large in indirect, but we have a lot of people. A lot of them 10 years ago were spending their time on very local activities, kind of that, we talk about the tail, we talk about transactional activity. It wasn't strategic, I would argue. And so we still have some of that talent, and now we're looking at it and saying, okay, with new technology coming, how do we upskill them so that they're willing to let go of some of that transactional activity and are better able to leverage some of these relationships that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think there's a comfort level in the tactical that makes it difficult to drive change when it comes to certain people and getting them to adopt the new technologies and the new ways of working. So that could be an issue too.
Thank you. So are we at a point, if we're talking about things like AI agents, for example, are we at a point where tailspend can be tamed without that human intervention? I know, Paul, you talked about balance. Maybe I'll come to you for that one first.
Sure. Yeah. I guess my view on tailspend is it's not necessarily where the money is. So we haven't historically put a lot of resources on. So quiet is kept. We're in a public setting here, but we haven't really managed a whole lot of the tailspend. So yeah, absolutely. With technology, my view on that is what we've done historically is we've put a little bit of resource on it, last few years, we've been saying, hey, who can help us with their resources on it, maybe utilizing some of their technology. And now it's what kind of technology can we deploy to manage that in-house? And I think we're well on our way on that journey.
Thanks. Kurt, to see you want to come in there.
Yeah. So the tail. When I look at the tailspin, I agree with you saying, hey, that's not where the money is. That's not where the savings is. That's not where the value is. But it's where the highest compliance risk is, right? Because you have the underlying tone throughout the organization that, hey, look, no one's watching me buy that $20 part or that $30 part. They all care about that $100,000 million piece of equipment. So adopting AI will help drive that compliance piece, right? And is it going to be fully, autonomous? Is it going to be without human intervention? I think the answer is yes and no. Yes, for very low complexity, very commoditized, standard off-the-shelf items, I think could absolutely be pushed through this. But once you start to build the complexity, I think that's where ambiguity or subjectivity kind of steps in from our suppliers. And we have to be able to control that and at least make sure that we evaluate that in some capacity, go, hey, I am buying exactly what I need, versus the system making a decision based off of maybe something else.
Can I chime in with an example?
Absolutely.
Real quick? So Veronica up here in the orange and Katya, Veronica was my first indirect leader ever out. Like, I came out of college, she was my first leader. Katya was one of my coworkers. So glad that you were here. But I was talking to them yesterday, and they were mentioning that they were using AI capability to understand when contractors come on site to your building, that they're charging the right number of hours. By leveraging AI and the badging capability within their locations, they can now say, hey, you charged me for 16 hours, you were actually here for 10. That is like, I know it's not true, it might not be true tail, but that's the nuance that we were never able to get to before. And that's why I'm so excited about this AI capability, is that, like, if we can get to that nuance in a very rapid pace, then it's going to unlock, can we actually do QBRs now? Can we actually get to the tail because of the compliance risk? Can we get to other risk management opportunities because we've unlocked so much just through the technology itself? So it's a great example. Thank you for sharing it with me yesterday, but hopefully that's helpful.
And thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you, Amanda. Stephen, what's your take? Does it resonate with you? Where are we?
It does resonate with me, but I think in addition to thinking about AI and how we're applying that in our various different spaces on a day-to-day, you also have to take a look at the entire tech stack and how that interfaces with the different various AI components. And that's kind of where we are today, is trying to figure out, how do you inject AI on the front door? How do you orchestrate? How do you capture and manage demand appropriately? But then also for the tail spend, or the LVS as we call it, low value sourcing, low value spend at Reynolds, how do you manage that without having people manage that? So autonomous sourcing from end to end in the LVS space for us is something that we're really very interested in exploring and looking after. You get the cost savings, you get the process efficiencies and things like that, but you also position yourself to perform well in an audit, which at the end of the day, I think we all want to do, is make sure that we're not spending an inordinate amount of time doing the things that we thought we were doing in the first place so that we could, present it to the audit committee. So I think that, for me, is very relevant, because I am going through a marketing audit right now, and I don't think that we're exactly where we need to be in order for the end state to be what I described, but we're getting there, and that's what's exciting about it to me.
Fantastic, thank you. I want to move on to fragmentation, maintaining compliance. Obviously, indirect procurement manages many internal stakeholders. How can teams ensure they're providing a seamless buying experience while maintaining that kind of strict policy compliance? I'll work down the line. Kurt, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, I think it just boils down to consistency, right? I've been really focusing a lot over the last few years with my team, really kind of talking about being customer centric, and our stakeholders are our customers, right? At the end of the day, and I try and simplify the communication to the broader team to kind of give them something to lean in and go, okay, I understand what you're saying. And so I reference Starbucks, like having a Starbucks model. You can go anywhere in the world, walk into a Starbucks. You're going to know you're inside Starbucks. You're going to place your order. You're going to go through the process. You're going to receive your coffee at the end. and that whole process is going to be known. And if you know your process, then you'll understand exactly what you're going to get out of that process. So having that consistency, I think, is hypercritical. So we focus a lot on from the intake through the e-sourcing and the procure-to-pay solution, trying to augment some of that with automation, and then all the way through contracting, utilizing a CLMA tool to help with the contract management lifecycle. But really, if we can give our stakeholders a very Starbucks-like experience, then they're going to know what the process is, and they're going to understand, okay, procurement needs this amount of time to be able to accomplish what they need, versus if we didn't have that consistent model, and let's say a stakeholder came to us to process a purchase requisition, and we just went dark, they would wonder, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Are we actually providing a service? Do they actually want to do this for me? Do they want to go out and source this for me, or do they not? And then that causes a lot of noise and a lot of challenges to mitigate from a leadership perspective. So I think consistency is critical in this space.
Great, thank you, Amanda. I see you nodding. Do you want to come in and
like,
we'll work down?
I'm like working up an example here. So I do a lot of mobile ordering in Starbucks. And part of the reason why I love the mobile order in Starbucks is because I have constant visibility. Right?
There you go.
To exactly where my drink is, exactly what is going on in that space. So it would be my dream for that consistency, for that stakeholder interaction, to never have a stakeholder ask me, why has my supplier not been paid? Where's my purchase order? Has the item arrived? Like if we could get to a space where we could proactively give them that visibility, which I think we're darn close to being able to do, that would be a game changer, I think, right? So not only do you have that consistent process, but they have the visibility, so we're not the black box anymore, right? Where things go and hide or die. We can give them that constant visibility and earn their trust through that mechanism too.
Thank you. Paul?
I would add that I think it starts with alignment at the top of the company from a procurement perspective. So, finance, the business leadership, the functional leadership, do they view how they spend their money, the company's money, as a priority? And I think that, frankly, is on us as procurement leaders to help them on their journey of seeing this as a priority. One of my pet peeves is when I hear someone in my organization come back and say, well, that person or that function won't do it because they're not ready for a change. They don't want to make the change. My argument back is, well, we haven't given them a strong enough business case then. That's on us more than it is on them from a stakeholder engagement plan, because this is real money that we manage for these companies. And we should I know we do all take a lot of pride in that. Part of our goal is to be salespeople internally to get those other functions aligned with why this is a priority for them. Once you do that, then I think to your consistency point and leveraging technology, having standard governance principles that are simple for them as users of this is key. Because where I've seen us fail is where we make it overly complex, very manual. They don't care. They just want to get their widget, their service, whatever. But it's our job, of course, to manage the governance, talk about auditing. Let's make sure we don't fail an audit. That's on us to help them on their journey. And that's candidly where I get some of my most excitement from a technology standpoint, because simplifying the buying process for all these stakeholders on the tail, on all those suppliers, so that we can spend our time on the large scale relationships. There's just so much more opportunity that's untapped right now.
Thanks, Paul. Stephen, would you like to add?
I think also you have to think about the policy, and you have to think about the ways of working as well. I think that it all centers around the baseline that you mentioned, which is really the stakeholder engagement piece, right? And evaluating the policies and the procedures and the ways of working to determine if they are fit for purpose in today's environment, right? We mentioned COVID. The post-pandemic environment has changed drastically over the past few years. Now we're in, another situation of economic uncertainty with the current macroeconomic situation that's taking place. So I think that the key is to make sure that the stakeholders are on board for constant change, right? And I think that some people think that you undergo a major transformation and that's it. You just sit there and you have a steady state for however long you have a steady state. And that's not the case by far, right? We all have to be agile. I hate to use that word because I think it's been thrown out quite a bit. But I think we all have to remain vigilant and agile, and we also have to coach our stakeholders to have the same mindset. Otherwise, we're going to be working and we're not going to be getting things done because we don't have the buy-in that we need to actually implement anything.
To that point, can I give it like a little tip? If you are working on your storytelling to influence and to gain that buy-in and everything, there's a wonderful book, Donald Miller, Building Your Story Brand. I don't know if you've ever read it. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. I'm a book geek. So if we can talk afterwards if you want like a link to it or anything, but it is a phenomenal book about how to sell your story.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Something to take away. Thanks,
Yeah,
Amanda.
you're welcome.
What about the supplier side? Obviously, we're talking about risk, compliance, maintaining policy. How can autonomous tools help with monitoring supplier financial health, for example, to prevent disruption on that side? Maybe starting with you, Stephen, and working down the line.
I think in that regard, you have the benefit of having constant monitoring. So you're in front of something before it becomes an escalation that is difficult to manage or has to be escalated to the highest levels. Whereas before you're doing it every quarter, you're doing it every 6 months, or you're planning to do it every quarter and it turns out to be every 6 months. If you've got the automation injected and you're getting constant real-time updates in terms of supplier risk, whatever the case may be, if it's a force majeure, if it's financial risk or supplier risk or anything like that, then you're able to make better decisions quicker. So I think that that's the key for autonomous monitoring of supplier risk.
Thank you. Paul?
Yeah. I would say we've put more of an effort on our direct materials space for this, especially in light of what happened during the pandemic and kind of the volume rebound that occurred in industry and how hard that was on some companies and some suppliers. And I've been really encouraged about how credible our proactiveness has been. Because again, you look at where we were coming from, which was very reactionary, very manual, very just, let's throw some labor of people searching for things, maybe leveraging some third parties, but not consistently around the world. So, we operate in over 60 countries. I think it's important that we look at it consistently around the world, and technology has really helped us proactively understand, especially in the material space and supply chain space, what's going on out there. Some signals well in advance of when they're actually going to impact our ability to receive supply. And then I mentioned credibility. We can use that internally in the company to drive second source discussions and really get some change management.
Thank you. Amanda?
So I'm vibe coding this next week. Anyone vibe coding out there yet? No? Yes. Okay. So I'm literally on stage next week and I am vibe coding a agentic AI solution to monitor financial risk of suppliers.
Amazing.
And it's all from public sources. And it will go from like government sources, like with official filings, all the way through Reddit, right? So you can monitor all kinds of different risk now. And it's we're just building it in Copilot Studio. So, I mean, the possibilities of getting your hands on this information are really limitless if you have the right tool set and you don't have to spend a bunch of money to do it. We're gonna build that in about 25 minutes next week. I'm happy to share more if you want, but you can go out and vibe code this weekend and see if you can figure out something.
Amazing.
I would add, if I could, I know there was a category strategy panel earlier here on this stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's really important that this isn't viewed as some one-off, oh, it's over there, let's get some, reports done. But it's, everyone in the organization, the procurement category strategies are utilizing this data on a real-time basis to help drive some of those internal discussions around where we are at, and where we want to go. And really, driving decision making using that technology.
I mean, category managers can get an email every morning on their category and the risk, the financial risk in their supply chain, right? Like that's available to us right now. It should be really built in and used and insightful. So yeah, for sure.
Thank you. Kurt,
Yeah.
Kurt, to the supplier point, how are you using technology to manage that, the supplier financial side and I guess broader supplier relationships at Jabil?
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo pretty much everything's already been said. The most precious commodity I think we have within procurement and supply chain is time. And any moment that we have to unlock more time to make decisions or to react or prevent is something that we look very intimately at. So yes, we do financial monitoring inside of Jabil, and we do have a proprietary tool that we utilize for that as well. But yeah, I would just echo everything that the folks said.
Great. Okay, look, we talked about balance. We talked about humans and machines, I guess. I want to go down the line and ask you what the one indirect category is that you think should remain, I guess, human-led as we move into the AI world. Kurt, I'll start with you and we'll work down.
Yeah, I touched on that earlier. I think AI is going to be a great solution. It's going to have a lot of utility, right? And I think over time, the technology is going to continue to advance and more scale and iteration. But and today, if you were asking me today, I would say anything that comes with high levels of complexity are not going to be fit for purpose. And so one that comes to mind would be construction-led engagements, right? If you got to build a $50 million new facility and you need to go through the whole GC, architect, design, review, I just don't see AI tools being robust enough to bring a significant amount of value to it. It can help in maybe little spot sections of the process, but from a majority to a minority, the majority of that process, specifically in construction, is going to be manual or it's going to be human-led with maybe some iteration or augmentation from AI.
Great.
I this is going to be a very consultant sounding answer, but I would look at complexity, like to your point, complexity, and then ethical risk. Right. So I was just on a webinar a couple weeks ago where they were talking about you're buying some autonomous vehicles for your warehouse. And you probably want to have a human in the loop to understand if there's an accident, whose fault is it? Is that the supplier's fault? Are you taking on the risk? Like, so there's a lot of like ethical questions, or if the autonomous vehicle can hit a person or take out a row of your inventory, what choice is it going to make? That kind of stuff, I think, is going to become really relevant really fast, and you're going to want to have a human in the loop for that.
Who programs that, right?
Yeah, I know.
At the end of the day,
All right.
who makes that decision?
Yeah,
That's
right.
the biggest challenge.
Yep.
Sure.
So complexity and then ethical risk.
Thank you.
Would you mind repeating the question?
It's the one indirect category that you think should remain human-led, I guess, as we continue to talk about AI.
Got it. I think it's a trick question. Yes, I do. And here's why. I think we're on a journey as human beings, not to get too philosophical here, but I think there's a role for humans and a role for technology that's going to continue to evolve here. At the end of the day, I would argue led. I can't really, sitting here today, think of something that at the ultimate level isn't going to be led by a human being. Now, the roles that humans and technology play in that, they're going to continue to evolve. But even, as we look at who's managing the AI, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, to be stewards of these companies, we still need human beings to have roles. What they do over time is going to continue to evolve. They're going to need to be upskilled. They're going to be spending less time on transactions. All of that is just really a lot of opportunity for us to think about, a lot of opportunity for our people if they're thinking about it right and not being defensive about it. But I really am encouraged about the role that humans and technology can have in the future. And I struggle to say there's not a human role in any category.
Which is good. Stephen.
For me, I would have to say it's probably professional services And if I'm building on the theme of complexity in particular, complex professional services, I think that there's always going to be an element required for human judgment in that space that you can definitely use the data and the insights that you get from technology, from AI in particular. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to replace that abstract human element that makes the decision about what's best, for that particular situation. For me, it's, I deal with marketing all day. So I couldn't imagine a world where we had machines making marketing decisions, on customer activations or anything along those lines, sponsorships, things like that. So professional services would be my category that I would say would, yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, guys, we're nearly at the top of the hour already. That's absolutely flown by. We've got time for a few questions. Are there any questions in the audience? Please put your hands up and we'll come to you with a microphone. Yeah, we have someone down here. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for the conversation today. It's really been enlightening. I'm Nadia. I'm here with McKinsey & Co., Spendscape, the spend analytics tool. And one thing I wanted to ask is that one thing we're seeing often as a challenge in indirect spend isn't identifying the opportunity, but it's getting businesses to actually change that behavior. So what's worked for all of you in the sense of driving that adoption from top-down approach?
You just beat them into submission. just beat them into submission. No. I think it goes back to a few comments earlier. Everyone will buy in if they understand why they need to buy in, right? If they're involved in the journey. I would say, I'll give you an example. My early days in indirect procurement, I had the opportunity to join Jabil very, very early in the indirect procurement development stage. And one of the issues that we continuously failed on was we were making decisions that were good for us, but we weren't taking in the voice of the customer. We weren't taking the voice of, other folks within the organization. So I would say that if you're really trying to drive some adoption and get buy-in, allow them to play a part in the decision making and allow them to take part in the conversation and at least hear their voices, hear their concerns, and put that into practice.
I actually started Wonder Services to solve that problem, right? Because I saw it all the time. One of the things that I would just say is that most people fail when they think it's a technology implementation, right? If you say it's a technology implementation, you're going to get a really interesting tool. But if you look at it as like, how is this going to be embedded into the work that we do? What's that process and user experience look like? Do we have policies to support it? Do we have the right skill sets in the organization? All of that goes into making sure that it's successful. And I'm not talking about procurement. I'm talking about your end users and making sure that we're thinking through this comprehensively. Technology deployments are going to go really, really quickly. Like we can get an agent up and running within a few hours, but the human capability still needs to be there, right? So we need to take our time to make sure that people are coming along, bringing them in early, having them part of the design process, having them think of the ideas to deploy. All of that goes into making sure that it's successful at the end of the day.
This is one of my favorite topics. So I think we could spend a lot of time on this. A couple of things, and you said you're with McKinsey, was it? Okay, yeah. So I think understanding who the stakeholder is, right? So I think that comes through experience with them and curiosity with them, willing to invest time with them, not just, scheduling one meeting, giving them some pitch and you're done, but truly investing your time, your team's time within procurement to understand, to your point, what their business conditions are, what they're trying to accomplish, and then utilizing procurement to help them be successful in whatever it is they're looking to do, whether that's growth or saving money or whatever it happens to be. Another strategy is, at least at my company, there's a balance of internal, I'll call it, long-term knowledge and some external talent that's come in and really trying to leverage both of those mindsets of kind of, this is the way we do it here, and hey, we've really had success trying it different ways and trying to leverage those mindsets within the stakeholder community to the best of your ability to drive change. It's all about driving change. And then the third is operating at the right level, right? I mean, there's decision-making authority on some of this stuff. It's different depending on what part of the company you're operating in, but understanding that decision-making authority and working with the right level to get those decisions, I would say would be some key techniques I would use.
Thanks. Well, Stephen, would you answer add anything?
I think another critical element would be your relationship with finance. That's where I would make sure that I had the most tight relationship. If you had the only one relationship with a stakeholder subset, make it finance. We recently did a project where we were after getting a little bit closer to finance and aligning better with finance so that we could have our stakeholders align on the front end with the budgetary information, with the savings definitions, with the approvals on all of the spend matrices and all of that. If you start with finance and finance becomes your best friend, then that's doubling your influence out to your stakeholders. And it builds some credibility with your stakeholders that we were able to recently do. We had a project that we affectionately dubbed as Project Cashanova, where we went around to all of our different finance functions and we spent some time with them debating what the definition of savings was versus cost avoidance versus contribution to budget. We debated with them about whether or not they could be the back door for the stakeholders. A lot of times the stakeholders won't like what they hear from procurement and they'll go to finance and they'll get a different answer and they'll run with it because they like what they're hearing. I think that relationship with finance prevents a lot of bad behavior in that regard, and it also demonstrates the alignment that sets the example to go build the relationships with the other stakeholders.
Did finance know that you called it Cashanova?
Yes, they do.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. I think we've got time for one more quick question if there are any. Yeah, we have one down the front here.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts in this playbook. Obviously, you are super experienced in this market. Can you share any of these horror stories about implementing AI or something that you will definitely share with us that please watch out for this, don't do it? Anything that will marked already
That's a good one.
as a soul, like I will never do this again.
This has to be you, Amanda.
Well, okay, so we're still learning a lot about AI deployments, but I will say that I think a lot about like the misconceptions of AI. And one of the major learnings is that people are trying to deploy AI like it's another technology product, right? It is technology, don't get me wrong. But when you deploy AI, the better way of thinking about it is thinking about onboarding a new employee, right? You have to train it. It has to know your SOPs. It has to know the process, has to know how you like to operate, what results you want to get out of it. So what I see failure over and over again is they're like, oh, we're just going to deploy AI and it's another tech, but they don't go through that mindset shift around what this really is for an organization. So that I could give you horror stories too, but that's like one major learning that I think if you go away with that, it would be you'll avoid a lot of issues.
Great. I'm reluctant to end on horror stories, but does anyone else want to add anything to that, or should we leave it there? Okay, fantastic. Well, I think that's it. Thank you so much to our panelists. Please give them all a big hand. Thank you, guys. Really good panel.